Hello everyone, it's Ginger, and we're going to go through a little bit more of the life of Samson today in Judges chapter 14. But I realized 2 chapters ago I forgot to tell you something. So last time we talked about Samson, about, well, we'll go over that in a minute. But before that, in chapter 12, we talked about Jephthah and his couple of successors, the judges that came after him. Now, the judges that came after him, didn't we say they served? I'm looking at chapter 12 here. One of them served 7 years and the other one served 10 years. It doesn't say much about them. So maybe those were times of relative peace. I'm not sure. But anyway, when Jephthah, remember after he defeated the Ammonites, the tribal leaders of Ephraim came to him and said, why didn't you include us? And he explained to them, I did ask for your help and you didn't give your help. And they ended up fighting one another, and thousands of the tribe of Ephraim were killed, 42,000, which is really sad because they were brethren, Israelites fighting other Israelites. So it's really sad. But I said all that to say, I had forgotten to mention that, remember when Gideon, when he was fighting the Midianites, and God wanted him to take a very small group of men to fight them, so he took 300 men to fight the Midianites, and they won. Ephraim also came to Gideon and complained, why didn't you get us in on the battle? Because I think Ephraim helped them maybe capture those 2 kings or something, can't remember. But anyway, they were mad after the fact that they weren't included in the battle. And in this situation, they were mad after the fact that they weren't included in the battle. However, it sounds like Jephthah did try to include them and they weren't willing to help. So it sounded like these tribal leaders from Ephraim, that they didn't want the work, but they wanted the glory. They were only mad that they didn't help after the victory was was assured. So anyway, I forgot to mention that because I think it shows a little bit of lack of integrity of the Ephraimites. Is that how you say it? Ephraimites? I don't know. Anyway, so today we're going to, then of course in chapter 13, Samson is conceived. And he's conceived to parents. It never says the mom's name. The dad's name is Manoah. And his wife was barren, and she was visited by the angel of the Lord, God himself in the form of an angel, who instructs her that she's going to have a child. And the whole purpose for Samson coming into this world is so that he can deliver the people from the Philistines. So this is the first example where we see the Lord creating someone to judge Israel. So it does have, like these people, like I told you, they're like types and shadows of Jesus Christ. In some respects, of course, they're imperfect and Christ is perfect, but they show what he will be like. He will save his people. And so this one reminds me a little bit more of Jesus because, an angel also visited, it was the angel Gabriel, but he also visited Mary, mother of Jesus, and she knew that he was going to be conceived by the power of the Holy Spirit and all that. But anyway, Samson from his conception is to be a Nazirite, where he's set aside with a special vow. He can't touch any dead things, anything unclean. He can't eat anything unclean. He can't drink wine or have anything to do with the grapes. And he cannot cut his hair. So those are some of the vows, and that's kind of symbols of what sets them apart to God. A Nazirite was set apart for God. It was usually a shorter period of time. I think it could be a year. It could be like 7 years. But for Samson, it was conception to death that he would be a Nazirite. Okay, so let me go ahead and read chapter 14. Samson's growing up now, and he wants to marry. So let me read this, chapter 14. Then Samson went down to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnah, one of the daughters of the Philistines. Let me see if I can we talked about where Samson was. I see it on the one map. I'm just seeing if I can find it on another. Because Samson was growing up between Zorah and Eshtaol. I don't know if I'm saying this right. Here's Zorah and Eshtaol. I showed you these before. Now, this is the Dead Sea, so this is the lower part of Israel. But he goes down to Timnah. Where's that? I just saw it. Oh, it says down. Maybe it's down in elevation, because to me it looks like it's just across from them, Timnah. So he goes down there and he sees a woman who is one of the daughters of the Philistines. They're not supposed to intermarry with the Philistines, because what does that do? Or with any of these people groups, because referred to as Canaanites, because that causes them usually to worship false gods. Okay, verse 2. So he came back and told his father and mother, I saw a woman in Timnah, one of the daughters of the Philistines. Now, therefore, go get her for me as a wife. He wants this Philistine woman to be his wife. I'm sure this is super shallow. She's probably some really hot girl, right? And that's who he wants. He didn't even know her, okay? Then his father and his mother said to him, is there no woman among the daughters of your relatives or among all our people, the Israelites, that you go to take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? But Samson said to his father, get her for me, for she looks good to me. You know, she looks good. She might be worshiping false gods, but hey, she looks good. You know, again, these people were worshiping Baal. They were sacrificing their children to Baal. If he intermarries with a Philistine, he could find his child sacrificed to Baal. Do you see what I'm saying? It's just not a good idea. But anyway, let's keep going. His parents don't like it, but he's insisting. You know, and he's their only child, which they had when they were likely older, and they'd never been able to conceive before. Okay, verse 4. However, his father and mother did not know that it was of the Lord, for he was seeking an occasion against the Philistines. Now at that time, the Philistines were ruling over Israel. God is going to use this, even though it's not right for him to intermarry. What this is essentially saying is that God is going to use this. He will incorporate, even when we do wrong, God will incorporate things into his overall will. God's will is very complicated. Like, you know, often as believers, we might say, oh, this is God's will, or this isn't God's will. But God's will is usually a little bit more complicated than that. And when we fall off the path, God can adjust his will and use even what we do wrong. If we love God and we've been called according to his purpose, he can use even what we've done wrong in accordance with his will. But that's a whole nother lesson. So anyway, but his parents do object. Okay, verse 5. Then Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother and came as far as the vineyards of Timnah. And behold, a young lion came roaring toward him. Okay, they went as far as the vineyards of Timnah. Keep in mind, he is a Nazirite. He can't be in the vineyards. He's not even supposed to be touching the grapes and stuff. He can't drink them. He can't eat them. He can't eat raisins. He can't eat other things that are made out of grapes. So they come as far as the vineyards and they stop. And a young lion came roaring toward him. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, so that he tore him as one tears a young goat, though he had nothing in his hand. But he did not tell his mother or father what he had done. Oh, it says, I said the lion came roaring toward him, toward them. That's not what it says. It says a young lion came roaring toward him, Samson, a young lion, like maybe a kitten or a teenage lion, okay? And Samson has this freakish strength. He tore that lion to shreds. Okay, he tore it apart with his hands. Now, he didn't tell his mother and father what he had done. Why is that? Because Samson is not supposed to touch anything dead. So, like if he were, I don't know how all they hunted, but if he had a bow and arrow and shot something, somebody else could go deal with it, but he couldn't like process the meat or anything. And I don't think he's a hunter anyway, but he kills this lion with his bare hands because he has this freakish strength. Anyway, he didn't tell his parents because he's unclean. When he touched that dead animal, he's unclean. He should go to the priest, and he might have to start the Nazarite vow all over again. I don't know all the details of how that worked, but let's keep going. So he went down and talked to the woman he was interested in, and she looked good to Samson. I think this was just a physical attraction. When he returned later to take her, he turned aside to look at the carcass of the lion. And behold, a swarm of bees and honey were in the body of the lion. So along comes a bunch of bees in the next following days, and they build a hive, a beehive. A swarm of bees were in the lion and honey. It doesn't say there was a hive, but a swarm of bees were in there, and there was honey in there. So maybe there was a hive in there. So he scraped the honey into his hands and went on, eating as he went. Again, he's breaking his vow. Because he's not allowed to touch a carcass, he touches it again. He shouldn't eat anything that has been in a carcass like that. The honey itself was unclean because of where it was. When he came to his father and mother, he gave some to them, and they ate it. But he did not tell them that he had scraped the honey out of the body of the lion. So I don't know that his parents are still in Nazarite vow, but even they, being Jews, would not want to eat unclean things that were unclean. And this honey, because of where it was located, is unclean. He's really deceiving his parents here. He's broken his vow a couple of different times here. He's just a mess right now. But he knows it's wrong. That's why he's not telling his parents. Then his father went down to the woman, and Samson made a feast there, for the young men customarily did this. So he's making a feast for this lady he wants to marry. When they saw him, they brought him 30 companions to be with him. They must have had money because, they hired, maybe this is like some kind of bachelor type party or something. They hired people to do mourning for them. Like if there was a funeral, they would hire mourners to weep and wail. I think they hired these guys. It says they brought 30 companions. They were likely paid people to be his companions while he's fixing to get married. Okay, now I'm going to read from verse 12, Samson's riddle. Then Samson said to them, I guess his companions, "Let me now propound a riddle to you. If you will indeed tell it to me within the 7 days of the feast and find out, then I will give you 30 linen wraps and 30 changes of clothes." So he's going to give them all new wraps and clothes if they can figure out this riddle during the 7 days of feast time. So this feast that he's having with his wife-to-be, it's 7 days. He continues to talk to them. "But if you are unable to tell me, then you shall give me 30 linen wraps and 30 changes of clothes." So each of the guys is going to have to give him a set of clothes. And they said to him, "Propound your riddle that we may hear it." So he said to them, "Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. But they could not tell the riddle in 3 days." Now, he's talking about the lion. The lion is the eater or the hunter type thing. And he's strong, and out of strong came something sweet. Then it came about on the 4th day that they said to Samson's wife, "Entice your husband." So they must already be married. Maybe they got married and then had 7 days of feast. Anyway, they're calling her his wife at this point. The Jewish wedding festivities were really different, though. They were really different. I mean, at first you were betrothed, but and you were considered married, but you weren't really living together as husband and wife. And then the husband would go build a place for the woman, and then he would come back and get her, and then they would live as husband and wife. So maybe they're in one of those stages, and that's why they're already calling her, because I don't think they were living together yet. I think they might be betrothed, and so he would be referred to as her husband even if they had not consummated the marriage yet. So I might be confusing you, but the Jewish wedding, it's very interesting, the ancient Jewish wedding ceremony, but let's keep going. Then it came about on the 4th day that they said to Samson's wife, "Entice your husband so that he will tell us the riddle, or we will burn you and your father's house with fire." Have you invited us to impoverish us? Is this not so? Basically, they're telling the new wife, we're going to burn down your house. What great buddies they hired for their son. If you don't tell us what the riddle is, because we'll be impoverished if we have to buy him all these clothes. So this is just really bad. Okay. Samson's wife wept before him and said, you only hate me, and you do not love me. You have propounded a riddle to the sons of my people and have not told it to me. So these 30 guys are Philistines. Again, why are they doing this? Oh. Anyway, they should not be associating with these people. So she's crying, oh, you don't love me if you don't tell me this riddle. And he said to her, behold, have I not told it to my father or mother? Behold, I have not told it to my father or mother, so should I tell you? However, she wept before him 7 days while their feast lasted. She's crying all these 7 days. I'm sure Samson was miserable because they're supposed to be having a good old time, right? And on the 7th day, he told her because she pressed him so hard. What an unloyal wife. But who did he pick? He picked a Philistine woman. Of course she was an unloyal wife. Her interest is in her people, not in him. She then told the riddle to the sons of her people. So the men of the city said to him on the 7th day before the sun went down, what is sweeter than honey? And what is stronger than a lion? And he said to them, they guessed the riddle because she told them what it meant. So the men of this, and he said to them, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have found out my riddle. Oh my gosh. Basically, you got this secret from my wife. That's where you got the secret. He knows what happened. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, and he went down to Ashkelon and killed 30 of them and took their spoil and gave the changes of clothes to those who told the riddle. He killed these guys? Ashkelon, let me find this place. So he just killed them. I mean, this is getting pretty ugly. Here's Ashkelon. Right here. By the Mediterranean Sea there. Okay. Okay, so and took their spoil and gave the changes of clothes who told the riddle. I thought he was the one who told the riddle. I'm confused by that. Anyway, he kills these 30 men and he gives their changes of clothes to those who told the riddle. I thought he was the one who told the riddle. I don't know. And his anger burned and he went up to his father's house. But Samson's wife was given to his companion who had been his friend. So they decide not to make that marriage permanent after all, which tells me that they were just in the first stages of marriage where they weren't actually living together yet. Because he decides he doesn't want her after all, which is probably a wise decision. But his friend, one of his companions who is his friend, took her as a wife. Isn't this something? Oh my gosh. Let's get back into it again next time.